So on this video, I thought I'd talk about my workstation a little bit. I'm going to step back. This thing here, I actually found out by the side of the road. Some woman was cleaning out her house, had it out there, and she said I could have it for free. So I brought this in and was trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do with it, and that's when I thought this would make the perfect workstation. So down here, kind of look back here, I've got some 1x3 boards which I screwed into the back, and then they stick up, and that's what I've secured the pegboard to. And of course the pegboard has all my frequently used tools, and then of course the 3D printer. This thing right here is actually a computer. That's a whole computer right there, in that it's actually smaller than a Mac Mini. I got that on eBay for about $60. It was bare bones, so I had to throw in a hard drive, and I put a 4 GB RAM chip in there, and it runs Windows 7. Over here, this is an old monitor that I had. I want to say 17, 19, 20 inch, something like that maybe. Honestly, I really don't remember. It's perfect for my purposes. If you're hard up for a monitor, you can always find a cheap used monitor on eBay for next to nothing, maybe $50. It's kind of floating up here, and that's because of this little arm I've got right here. And I've always wanted one of these because it's actually movable. I can move this, and it's got if I turn around to the back here. So it turns here, and it turns there, so I can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. And it was surprisingly pretty cheap. I found that on Monoprice. I want to say, I think it was $25. There was one on there for $20, but it only had a turn here and a one turn on the back, and I thought, well, I might as well get the extra turn for $5 extra. So, and yeah, all that runs into the computer over here. This computer, I don't have a keyboard for it. I've just got a mouse, and I'll show you why here in a second. Here's my old iPad. This is an iPad Retina. It's, 3, 4, 5 years old, I guess now. That's what I've been doing my time lapses on. Right here is a webcam. The reason I have that is because I can actually call this computer on Skype, and it'll automatically do a video answer, and so I can watch my print or check up on my print that's being printed via Skype if I want to. Let's see, what else? The other reason I don't have a keyboard over here is because I'm using Chrome Remote Desktop, which is, it's free. If you've got the Chrome browser, all you need is the extension. But using that, if I've got my Chromebook or my big desktop, I can log into those, and if I'm on the internet, I can pull up this computer and see the desktop and completely control the computer. So I don't even have to be here at the house to be able to control my 3D printer, to abort it or start a print or something like that. So it's really neat, and again, it's free and it's easy to use, surprisingly. Over here, some of the tools. First off, down here, a pair of needle nose pliers. These are great for removing the support materials. So like, I don't know if this will be in focus or not. This stuff right here is not actually a part of the thing. It's just there so that when it gets to this part right here to print this, it can't just print these out into space. So you've got these little supports here so it can print this part that's hanging off. I've got some screwdrivers back there. Some sockets, stuff like that. Calipers here, very important. Get a good set of calipers. Like I've ended up building several things on, whatever that website, Tinkercad, I think is the name of it. And that's been invaluable because I've needed them to be certain sizes. For example, here's this is a spool I printed using my 3D printer. Took me a couple of tries to get it right, but I needed the calipers to know how big to make the center hole and how big the whole thing would be. Let's see, what else? Something else that's kind of interesting. Haven't used it much because I haven't really had to finish up any prints, but this is a Dremel tool, and I've got a bigger one out in my work shed, but this one is actually meant for trimming your dog's toenails, but it works perfectly fine for doing some detail work on one of these models. And it's pretty cheap too. Cordless, rechargeable, and all of your attachments should work on that as well. Headlamp here, very important. I bought that kind of on a whim, but it's been surprisingly very useful. Painter's tape. Painter's tape, gotta have it, lots of it. Every time I print something, just about, I'm having to replace the tape. And that being said, I was using this knife here to get the models off of the tape, but since then I've started using this. This is a plexiglass cutter, and you probably can't tell. I don't think it'll zoom in on this. Yeah, there we go. If you look at that edge, you can kind of see. Well, no, it went out of focus again. Anyway, I found that it works very well because it gets underneath the edge, and then it's very easy to pry stuff up. In fact, I've been able to reuse some of this tape because with the knife, it always seemed like somewhere on the tape it caught, and I ended up cutting or slicing the tape. But with this, it really doesn't happen. And this was a few dollars. I bought it several years ago when I was messing around with some plexiglass. Let's see, that thing's the stand for the iPad. I've got a little thing here so I can put my scraps. And then, of course, I had an old clock that I found. And then my little desk lamp I use here for light. So that's pretty much everything. In here I've got, small pair of scissors right here. I've got a little ruler. That's kind of important. Super glue. When you get the super glue, be sure to get the kind that does not run. This is very liquidy. I mean, if you put it on there, it's like water. I mean, it just goes everywhere. So, keep that in mind. You might want to get one that does not run. They make that. And I should have gotten that. Of course, my X-Acto knife, very handy. And yeah, I think that's about it. So those are all the tools that I kind of use for 3D printing. I've gone on and ordered another 3D printer. I found one on Indiegogo that I really liked. It won't be in until October, unfortunately, but it will have twice the printing range of that one. That's one of my biggest complaints. Actually, I've got three big complaints. Number one, support just hasn't been available. Then the fact that it prints very slowly. I was talking to my nephew who's got a larger, more expensive 3D printer, and his prints considerably faster than this. If I was to print a coffee mug on this, it would take, I don't even want to think about how many hours. But I would go so far as to say at least a day to print a coffee mug. He can do it in like 6 hours on his. But also, number three would be the size. I keep running into all these cool things that I want to make, but my printer's just way too small. There's all kinds of masks that you can print off, and busts, and cool weapons and things from games and movies. But they just won't print on this because it is so small, and it takes so long to print. I have to be very careful about what's worth using that amount of time to print. So those are kind of my top three complaints right now. I don't know. I'll keep playing with it and see how it goes. You know, the software's still in beta, which, you know, is another thing I wish they would kind of hurry up a little bit on that. Maybe add in a few extra options. But anyway, see you next time.